We are showing 5 o'clock, and we do appear to have quorum.
Okay, so I'll call this meeting of the Mesilla Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Advisory Committee to order. I would like to have a moment of silence, a special memory for Chuck Malagotti, who was killed in a hit and run up in Albuquerque. He was well-known in the bicycle community. He worked for the City of Albuquerque's Outdoor Recreation Department for somewhere along 25 years. He was an LCI with a low number in the 600s, so he was teaching bicycle education for many years. So if we have a moment of silence, please. If we could do a roll call to establish the quorum and who's present, and also say what agency or what your representation is. We can start down here.
Jeremy Barella, I'm here representing the City of Las Cruces.
Andrew Bencomo, pedestrian representative.
Longino Bustillos, Doña, citizen rep.
Ashley Curry, I'm the citizen rep for the town of Mesilla.
Jim Wilcox, cyclist rep.
Andrew Guerra, NMDOT.
Selena Costa, representing NMSU.
And I'm George Pearson, City of Las Cruces citizen representative. We have approval of the agenda. Do we have any comments on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any changes to the agenda.
I'll hear a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Jim Wilcox, second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have approval of the minutes. If I can have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Jim Wilcox, I second.
Okay, and any discussion on the minutes?
Mr. Chair, staff does not have any changes.
Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Now we have public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment at this point? Seeing none, we'll move on to action items. We have the TIP presentations. TAP, rather, I'm sorry. TAP first, then TIP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dominic Loya for MPO staff. So we do have 2 applications. Right now, the town of Mesilla is not present. They do have an application for light ballards along Calle del Norte. We do have Miss Ashley Curry, though, here for Safe Routes to School, so we will go ahead and start with her. Both of these are TAP applications.
Good evening, fellow members of the BPAC. I'm Ashley Curry. I am also, as well as the citizen representative on the BPAC, I'm also the Safe Routes to School coordinator for Las Cruces Public Schools. And thank you for hearing me tonight with the presentation of the request for funding for the Transportation Alternatives Program. Just a little bit of a mission and history. Our mission is to make walking and biking viable, enjoyable, and safe, a safe option for students in Las Cruces Public Schools. We have been receiving TAP funding for many years, since about 2008, I think was our first application. We've been doing the program voluntarily even and just in the community since 2006 was when we first had a committee. So we're coming on, I think this is the 19th year of Safe Routes to School in some form in Las Cruces. Safe Routes to School is based on 6 E's, the education, encouragement, engineering, evaluation, engagement, formerly known as enforcement, and equity. And I'll go through just a short explanation of what each of those are within the program. Education, our aim is to educate students on becoming safe pedestrians and bicyclists. We teach a 4-part curriculum currently in 3rd grade, and this year we'll have reached every third grade student, which is 400 classrooms worth, or 400 classrooms of education that we've done, including field trips. Here's an example of students just learning to stay far in front of a vehicle so that they can be seen. We also, as well as doing third grade education, we do lots of middle school programs. We are currently doing an on-the-bike program at Student Success Academy for students. We go into high schools and then other grades in elementary school as well, just to do education. We also are league cycling. We have 2 lead cycling instructors on staff, and we're going to have 2 more because we're hosting a league cycling seminar that's a national program that's coming in 2 weeks' time to Las Cruces. So we do adult cycling education as well. Encouragement is one of the basis of our program, and we encourage students to walk and ride their bikes to school, either on their own or with families, or they do it in groups called walking school buses. We have 75 programs every month that students can participate in to walk or bike safely to school. We work, we don't do engineering ourselves, but we work with our community partners, the city, the DOT, the county, the town of Mesilla, to make sure that we have safe access on roadways for students to walk and bike safely to school. We are also currently doing walk audits at a number of our priority schools prioritized on the Social Vulnerability Index. And so the results of those walk audits will be shared with the municipalities that they're in to be able to offer ideas and suggestions of what to do, making improvements. Evaluation, in fact, there's a picture of the walk audit. A lot of our E's overlap, so the evaluation also has the walk audits in it. We're also currently interviewing every student in the entire school district to figure out how they get to school and get home from school. Those are called student travel tallies. So we will be in every single classroom in elementary school and middle and high school, do it through their advisory periods. So we'll figure out if kids walk, bike, take the bus, etc. And then every walk that we do, we keep track of our statistics. So we have many years of data there. Engagement is one of our most important E's. This is not only with law enforcement, but with many community partners, nonprofits, for-profits, businesses, etc., that help us be able to have the reach that we have and be able to do the programs that we do. We really couldn't do it without our partners. Equity is the lens through which we see all of it. So we make sure that we are reaching the students that really need us the most, rather than just being kind of equal throughout the city. We do that through our walk audits, as I mentioned, the Social Vulnerability Index, etc. We've done programs with special needs classrooms. We have reached out to, we've offered camps where students are coming to the community and don't have another form of transportation. So we've taught biking, we've offered bicycles to those individuals, and bike repair clinics, etc. And then everything we do in English and in Spanish wherever possible, teaching and material-wise. We continue, it's very important, as I said, in our partnerships. We are in many more than these 3, but at least here 3 listed: the Active Transportation Plan, Doña County's Plan 2040, the NMDOT's Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, the city's plan, the MPO's plan we're in. We coordinate to make sure that the program is sustainable. And some of our accomplishments I've already talked about. Since the last time we requested funding, we've been able to hire, before it was all part-time staff, we now have 3 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff, plus we have 45 walking school bus leaders that are at schools. As I told you, we have our 400 classes of pedestrian bike safety to the kids, at the at-use risk classes, and I think the rest of those things I've already mentioned, but we're busy nonstop. We're about to start a 12-week program with 7th grade students at Lynn Middle School to teach them how to walk and how to bike safely. Our future goals are really to implement the 2025-2030 action plan. And so it's just, more outreach to students, learning to ride for all kinder students, 5th grade curriculum, more on the bike education, continuing our partnerships, and just taking all the feedback that we've received and from our evaluations and our parent surveys and being able to implement those ongoingly. There's our budget, staff salaries, walking leaders, educational materials. The request for this particular grant is $700,000 total. So there's the requested amount there. $700,000 total. That's $598,080 from the NMDOT. And the match, the 14.56% match from the school district is a total of $101,920 for a total of $700,000 for 2 years. And that'll be 2026 to 2028. And I stand for questions. Comments? Thoughts?
See, doesn't sound like anybody had any questions? No, it's just, you
no, you
need to
have
be
to
on the microphone and give your name.
Andrea Olguin, Las Cruces. I just want to make sure, are you currently asking for money or are you reporting on the amount of money that you have received?
Thank you so much, Ms. Holguin. So it's an ongoing project. Because it's a program that we've had going since 2006, part of it was a report on what we've done, but this is an ask. So the ask at the end is a continuation of the funding that we have currently received, if that makes sense. So it is somewhat of what we've accomplished with the money that we've been given through this grant in the past, and then to being able to continue that on. Thank you. That was a great question.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, we do have Mayor Hernandez here representing the town of Mesilla. So he'll speak with you on the town of Mesilla's TAP application.
Good morning, or afternoon, I should say. Oh, see, this is how my day's been, so which I apologize for. I want to apologize first off because I don't have a formal PowerPoint for you on this, but it is fairly straightforward in what we're looking at in this application. If you're familiar with the multi-use trail that goes down Calle del Norte that was just recently completed, that goes part of the connectivity project that goes around the, not just through Mesilla, but through Las Cruces and Doña. The project has, or the part through Mesilla starts at the Mesilla lateral and goes down to the river. About a mile and a half of multi-use path that we have in that area. But if you've been on that path at any given point in time during the evening hours, more than anything, it is quite a bit dark out there and very dangerous going along that path. So what we're looking at is the installation of low-level light bollards to go down that path for every 20 feet that are solar powered. So not on the grid, going through all the way down that mile and a half stretch. At the intersections, in particular, there'll be a little bit 6 to 8 foot tall solar powered channel that'll have a light there to better light the intersections as well, where we have crossings at Paisano, Snow Road, and then of course down towards the river in particular. So that's what we're looking at. The total cost of the project is for the solar project is a little over 1.5 million to get 96 total low-level light bollards in. So that's what we're looking at there. So, like I say, straightforward for the most part, and I can always answer questions.
So they'll be installed between the roadway and the trail? Is that the plan?
Not the roadway and the trail. It'll actually be in between the trail and the private property.
Okay.
Yeah, just so that for
So that they don't look like targets to the cars.
correct. And I think that's the other part that we see is sometimes vehicles that potentially veer off in that. So we want to create it to be a little bit more of a safe space for people when they're utilizing that.
Jim Wilcox for the record. Are these like up and above and down or sideways or?
No, so there. Let me for clarification. The taller ones at the intersections, it's just a 4x4 post that actually has solar panels that go wrap around that. And then there would be a night sky ordinance or night sky light that meets our ordinance, and also the state's night skies that shines down on the intersections. The other ones are the low-level bollards, just like what you see out in front of this building, where they're rounded caps and emit light along the pathway that way.
I'm really glad to see that you've included accommodation for the Dark Skies Initiative.
Definitely. That's a huge thing, especially out in Mesilla, where it is definitely a little bit darker out there.
Thanks.
Longino Bustillos, Doña Rep. I do that path a lot, and my biggest concern is crossing across, because there's 3 places where I have to cross on that road. Is there going to be any special lighting for that, as far as so cars can see pedestrians or bicyclists crossing that road on those intersections?
That's where at the intersection in particular, that's where we're looking at the taller lights. So it's not the low level that would be there. It would actually be a taller light that shines within the intersection more than anything to allow that to
Because
happen.
you said an intersection, but where it gets to the river, there's no road. There's just dirt roads there. There's not really an intersection. So it's just the bike path crossing.
Yeah, wherever the path
Wherever the-
crosses.
okay.
Yeah, wherever. Yeah, I apologize about that.
Mr. Chair. Andrew Bencomo. Like him, we use that path a ton. We love that path. It's great, and it'd be nice to have it lighted to use in the evening, especially in the summer when it's hot. It'd be nice to run down there. My question is more of the long-term protection of them, because George brought up them being by the road and people veering off, because I've seen that happen. You see tire tracks down into the path and things. But on the other side, especially on the new section closer to Mesilla on the north side of the road, I've seen there's a couple of spots, and I see a little bit on the south side also on the other side, where people that farm the fields there have driven onto the path. There's a couple of spots where they have actually broken the concrete drainage where it's on the north side. So is there some kind of, how is that going to be handled I know you can't fortify everything, but then when those get busted like that, is there a process to handle that? Because I know there's farmers there that use it, but they're also going onto the path, and I think that is not their property on the path. Otherwise, the path wouldn't be there.
Right, and thank you, Mr. Rincomo. That damage that you were actually talking about, we just had repaired, and that was actually caused by a vehicle veering off, not by the farmers there
Okay.
themselves. So
Thank you for the clarification.
accidents like that do happen, and fortunately, the town does carry the insurance policies that do help in covering situations such as that. But we are also looking at the incorporation of budgeting for maintenance for these fixtures, as well as the potential replacement that might come with an occasional one that does get hit.
Okay, thank you for the clarification too. I'm not, it sounded like I was blaming farmers, but it just, because it was on that side. And they've also, when they do their pecan crops, sometimes they leave piles of stuff on the path. So thank you for the clarification on that damage.
And I'll get my team to work on making sure it's cleared all the time, though.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Mayor Hernandez, Ashley Curry, for the record. Thank you again so much for that path. It's been really amazing. I know Rod McGilvery, that was his sort of baby and brainchild when he was at the town of Mesilla. It's been incredibly useful, and we use it a lot with the kids. One of the questions that I have, and I don't know, it may be too late to put this into this application, but if there's a possibility to do a curb cut, and I was trying to look and see on exactly, it's either Calle Picacho or Calle Los Huertos, when you're coming in, because we choose the quieter side streets when we're riding with kids, but then when you cross over the road, there's a curb and there's no way to just be able to kind of go through an intersection to access the path on the north side. So I know that there isn't an official crossing there, but it is what we use with kids, but then they all have to get off, and we've got kids kind of waiting in the road to try to lift their bikes up. Is that something that the town of Mesilla could potentially look into, giving access on those intersections?
Most definitely. So I don't have that in this application. This one's only for lighting, but I think I can take note of that and work with DOT because we are completing that kind of the Picacho project right now with the sidewalk infrastructure going in on that side as
Super.
well.
Thank you.
So and it's all for mobility and walkability of our entire community. and connecting paths across busy streets are definitely something that should be taken into consideration. So I'll definitely note that, and I think in future conversations that I have with members of the MPO, that's something that we can look at as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, so do you have a budget for some extra fixtures for replacement in this, or will that be handled through maintenance
Yeah,
separately?
so going through our current budgeting process, that's what I anticipate, and because I'm already increasing for building repairs, and it'll be increasing that budget to incorporate some more lighting fixtures as well.
And I did want to follow up on Ashley's comment about the curb cuts. Times that I've come across on, and I don't remember the name of the streets, but any of the streets that end up across from the part of the trail that's on the north side, it's just not practical really to get onto the trail. I would stay on the street until I can cross over to the trail on the southern side. And I did find out from previous marshal that the town actually has a required use the side path law. So anything that you can do to address the curb cuts would be helpful. I think it increase safety for the users to get them up on the trail, onto the multi-use trail and out of the roadway. I've noticed, the first thoughts was, well, as bicyclists, I have use of the roadway, but as a practical matter, using that trail is so much nicer that I think even when the club rides come through, that a large percentage of them will choose to use the trail. Okay, anybody else have questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So what's our expectation here? I noticed one of these is a programming project and the other is a construction project. Can we both rank them both as number one in those categories, or do we have to choose?
So, Mr. Chair, in this case, this is just a recommendation to the policy board, which will now actually, going forward, be known as the governing board. Because this one doesn't have to actually be ranked. When we get to TPF, those will have to be ranked.
Okay,
But
so we could
federal
accept the
projects,
motion that recommends both projects to the governing board now. Is that correct?
that is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, I would hear such a motion.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion or comment? So do we need to vote on these separately, passing them? I just have an opinion that Ashley Curry is voting for something. If we vote on both, she would be voting either for something that she is personally involved in, or she would have to not vote for the Mesilla one also. So do we want to do them separately?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Bencomo, the MPO does not treat it that way. Ms. Curry is perfectly at liberty to vote however she feels on her own and on the other projects. We do not require the members to recuse themselves in that manner for project prioritization.
So we don't follow the city's policy on conflict of interest when it comes to that?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Because excuse me, Mr. Chair, we would have a serious inability, an absolute disability, in fact, if we held that true for when the policy board has to rank the projects, each one of those members, if everybody recused themselves, then nobody on the board would be able to vote because those projects are all coming out of their own jurisdictions. So for that reason, if we hold that true for the governing board, then we're going to hold that true down through the rest of the advisory committees and allow all the members of the committee to speak their mind, both in comments and via the vote. So that's a little bit further of an explanation as to the philosophy behind that.
And for full disclosure, I also benefit from this program. So if that was the case, I would also have to abstain.
Also true. And I mean, as members of the cycling community, presumably there's going to be benefits that accrue to all of you through the implementation of this project. So it's understood and accepted. If I see you seem a little baffled, Mr. Bencomo, did I confuse you?
No, I just, for us to be part of the, saying we're going to benefit from that is a little bit of a stretch compared to, and let me be perfectly honest, I support safe routes to school. I always have, I always will. It's a wonderful program. But the conflict of interest is what I'm getting at. It's their job to do that, and they're voting for funds for that. So that's the only reason about it. But if you're saying it's not a conflict, then fine, let's move forward. I don't want to, I'm not here to belabor that.
It may not necessarily, not so much not be a conflict as in it's an understood factor of doing business. Might be a better way of looking at it. It's understood, it's known, we move on.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Ray, Mr. Bencomo, if it comes to a tie and I need to recuse myself, I will volunteer to do that. So if it comes to, a tiebreaker, we can address that.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Curry, actually, if we were going to force recusals, you would have already have had to have left the room. So that ship has sailed.
Mr. Chair, Jim Wilcox for the record. There's another group here that I think we should be aware of, and that's the public. People sometimes look for cracks in some sort of decision made by those people who are empowered to make decisions. I'm not saying that would happen. I can't imagine anybody being against either of these programs. But sometimes somebody raises a fuss and says, oh, look, they voted for their own pocketbook. So it's up to the committee to decide what they want to do. And I wouldn't want Ms. Curry to be the subject of negative publicity from some people in the community who might look for such reasons to be upset. But I just wanted to bring that up. I don't have a lot of concern about it, but I've seen it happen before.
So I guess I'm still looking for a motion to recommend approval of both projects to the governing board.
Mr. Chair, Longino Bustillos, I so move that we approve both amendments.
Andrew Guerra, NMDOT second.
And did we have a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? So we're on to now the tip amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dominic Loya for MPO staff again. So we will be, we do have two projects on the tip amendment. So this will be for federal fiscal year 2024 to 2029, and it's Transportation Improvement Program amendments. So this is part of the maintaining eligibility for Doña County to receive federal transportation funds. So we have a brand new project. This is LC 00590. And I'll go over the financials, and then Mr. Guerra will be able to go over more of the project in detail. So this is for federal fiscal year 2025. Lead agency is NMDOT. It's I-25 safety improvements from mile marker 6 to mile marker 14.2. It's roadside barrier improvements. It is a new project, as I said, for $2,550,000. And this will have a effect on performance measure 1 safety targets. And I'll let Mr. Guerra speak on this project.
Mr. Chair, we've just recently completed the I-25 guardrail improvements from Las Cruces all the way to about mile marker 172. So this is picking up the remaining pieces of the work from milepost 6 to milepost 14.2. That's going to involve the design and selection of roadside barriers.
So is this for the side, or are these cable guards in the median?
It will be throughout the whole corridor, the entire section.
Cable guards in the median?
Cables on the median, and then any roadside barriers that are
Oh,
needed
so
on the
both.
shoulders on both sides. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Anybody else have questions? Was this the only tip amendment, or was there another one?
There's a second one, but this was a new one. And our new paradigm now is to have the jurisdiction that brings it forward present something on that to give you more information on it. Then we have LC 00382. This is for federal fiscal year 2028. This is an DOT-led project. So this is for the I-25 Engler interchange ramp construction. This is adjusting the termini. So the scope of this is ramp construction, including guardrail replacements, drainage improvements, and lighting. There'll be a termini update to milepost 7 and milepost 8.3. It was much larger section before now. This will also include Engler Road between Elks Drive and Del Rey. The scope is to include safety measures for this interchange. This project will have an effect on performance measures 1, safety targets. MPO staff is requesting the BPAC recommend approval to the MPO governing board for this series of TIP amendments. I will now stand for any comments or questions.
So this project is just a way to put it onto the tip so that it can be funded in the future? Is that what's going on here?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody else have questions?
Mr. Chair, I just had a question on the timeline for the actual construction. Do we know how many years away that might be? I know it's a ballpark, but.
Yeah, Mr. Bencomo, I believe it's about 3 years out for construction, but I can confirm and send you that information.
Okay, yeah, it's closer than I thought, so thank you.
Okay, so now we just need a motion to recommend approval to the governing board. Is that correct?
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Andrew Bencomo, second.
Andrew got it? Andrew Bencomo seconded. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're on to discussion items. We have University Avenue Project lane width discussion.
This will be Mr. Andrew Guerra, sir.
Whatever is comfortable for you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to discuss the project a little bit more in detail with everyone. I came on board about 4 years ago. I know the project report Phase AB was done 2019, July, I believe, with a presentation to BPAC in November 2020. This involved a lot of complexities from right-of-way to EBID, drainage, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest hinge on this was right-of-way acquisition. The corridor itself is there, of course, to facilitate pedestrians, bicyclists, the school, other accommodations that were presented in the stakeholders meeting was the need for adequate space on transit and buses to allow for those types of vehicles. Research goes back with FHWA that basically we're stemming down from a typical or standard practice of 14-foot lane widths, which is where we had been in the past. Necking those down does present a improved safety with speeding, giving the driver that interpretation of something much more narrow, being more cautious on the road. We were fortunate to allow for a 12-foot lane on University, along with the 2 bike lanes on either side at street grade. There are several transitions in the roadway corridor to allow for the bus stops and transit locations, so bicyclists and pedestrians will be able to route behind those facilities and out of traffic. As a matter of fact, we have just started construction on the Laguna Drain, which is an EBID facility back in late November, early December, which is narrowing the roadway in that short section about 400 feet to 10 feet. So we'll have 10-foot driving lanes in that section with bikes routed on the outside. So we were fortunate enough to get 12-foot lanes in place and allow for all the amenities to be satisfied within this section from Main Street to Avenida de Mesilla.
Okay, what I recall from what was presented is that some part of the project had 11-foot roadway widths because of right-of-way constriction, and then other parts were 12-foot. You say fortunate for 12-foot, well, my thought is, and Johns Hopkins had a study that they released that narrower lanes are safer. So if part of the road design is already constrained to 11 feet, why shouldn't the entire project be constrained to 11 feet, especially since you're going down to 10 feet at one point because of other constrictions?
You're absolutely right. Then, as I mentioned, the narrow driving lanes gives you that perception of being cautious behind the wheel. So we were just, the study that was presented back in November gave a modified alternative, I believe, anywhere from 11 to 12 feet. But as we progress through design, we'll find other conflicts along the way that either favor that option or don't favor that option. In this case, there was a heavy comment on bus transit, bus stops that are in that location. So that added 6 inches on both sides felt more appropriate.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Guerra, thank you again for coming and talking about this tonight. I just second the thought that we just had the presentation at the county from Tool Design Group talking about lane widths and pedestrian safety. We're in front of Zia Middle School with 800 students there whose brains aren't fully developed and who are all over the roadway. And as much as we can try to teach them how to do it safely, we really have to go with the Swiss cheese model of, you know, at every opportunity vying for safety. And I think because it's such a pedestrian area, Mesilla is beautiful. This is a transition between the city, the town of Mesilla, having the school district. I would just request that we have that consistency. I realize that there may be pinch points that are down to 10, but if we can have that consistency of 11 the whole way down and just take that 1 foot from 12 to 11 and give it to the cycling path, I think it just has that continuity. And I always say predictability is safety. If drivers know that this is the width of the roadway the whole way down, it just makes it safer all around. And it just feels like giving something to being able to increase speed of vehicles. And I understand that there are buses there, but if buses can get through 10 foot, I look at downtown and how they design downtown. If buses and big vehicles and things can get through there, I'm just always going to be in favor of what's safest for our students.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Curry, I appreciate, and I can certainly take this to the design team and see if that is an appropriate change for the project. I can't make that call. Of course, I don't have my certified, seal on the plans. But I can certainly go to staff and revisit the item of increasing bike lanes and perhaps the 8-foot multi-use path. The 8-foot multi-use path is on the north side of University Avenue. I know there was an 8 to 10 range as well. I can certainly put that on the table for consideration as well.
Right, I wouldn't even advocate for a change in the physical design. We're talking about the lane lines. And
The paint.
that's paint, which can be easily
Easier.
figured out. I was fortunate enough, and Ms. Curry was also another member. We went to the NMDOT Traffic Safety Summit that you had, and so the presentation there is the Target Zero, which mirrors Vision Zero, and it strikes me as this is working against Target Zero a bit by encouraging faster speed with the wider lanes. And I also like to ask about, in that same vein, the recent project on Avenida de Mesilla. Of course, the physical aspect there is updating the pavements. I think it was a resurfacing. But then when you put the lane lines down, the middle turn lane is 14.5 feet. Bike lane on one side, at the point that I measured, is 3 feet, and the bike lane on the other side is 4 feet. So I recall something about without looking it up, but I believe I've heard that the AASHTO design standards are bike lanes should be 5-foot lanes. It seems like we could have gotten 5-foot bike lanes there with the narrower center turn lane, which nobody drives in the center turn lane anyways. The travel lanes were 11 feet, so there would have been room for better safety consideration, I believe, which is what Target Zero is supposed to be all about.
Mr. Chair, the project on New Mexico 28 was not really considered a construction project per se. It was a maintenance project. You're absolutely right. It was a mill and inlay. So it was removing the top surface and replacing it with newer hot mix, Super Pay 4. Curb and gutter, all existing. None of that gets removed and replaced. Should the curb and gutter come out, possibilities to reconfigure the section. So the 11-foot lane is actually to accommodate what's already there in place, allowing for a maximum bike lane anywhere from 4 to 5 feet. Those areas do vary depending on what section you are on 28.
But why, what's the requirement for a 14.5-foot center turn lane?
The requirement is there. That's the recommendation. I believe University holds 14-foot center turn lane.
Okay, well, having ridden that routinely, that's narrow, an extra foot there, especially because the drainage grates come all the way across the bike lane. If there was an extra foot there to not have to swerve into the travel lane, that would have been a safer solution. So I just want to put this under the, is NMDOT doing its best to do Target Zero? I guess I can just leave it at that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, thank you for those highlights. We are looking at that. Those grates are existing. That infrastructure is in place. Couldn't make too many modifications with the type of project that went in terms of the overlay, but we are working with a contractor to try and remediate some of the perimeter around the grates to make it a smoother transition.
Right. And I guess one other question on that project, there are no pedestrian crossings. Is that still coming, or what happened at Calle del Norte? I believe there are pedestrian crossings. There's a pedestrian crossing further down on Avenida de Mesilla to the south where we've got the pedestrian warning sign. And I know there was a crosswalk there. I think at the University or Calle del Sur. I believe there were also crosswalks there. Of course, that's under complete construction. That probably doesn't count anymore. Maybe at Bouts, there probably was. I don't, so
Mr.
is the project complete, or are crosswalks still coming?
They're still coming.
Okay.
We went through our inclement weather December, January, so we do have concrete finishing up as we speak, and we've got pavement markings following shortly after that. So it's on its way.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Jim Wilcox for the record. I believe that the concerns about Avenida de Mesilla are cogent. However, I want to return to the agenda item at hand, and that is University. And what is the actual barrier? Is there any barrier between where cyclists will ride and the street, or is it just a line?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wilcox, it's both. They will have the stripe when they're at grade at street level. There are points where they do transition, as I mentioned earlier, outside the transit bus stops or wherever there's conflicting, restraints on the shoulders. So they'll be migrating away from the road and up into a trail and back down.
And when you say bus stops, you mean at the school bus stops or down the road where they pick up people?
No, sir, city transit.
City transit. Oh, okay. When you started saying buses and it being near a school, I thought those were school buses. So you're saying that the city transit bus operators are concerned about the lane width?
There were, Mr. Chair, there were comments on city transit and making sure there was available adequate safe space between vehicles as well.
Well, I want to concur that the 11-foot width is the preferred option from my standpoint and those I represent because of the established research showing that it does tend to slow drivers down and it adds extra space for the cyclists. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Andrew Bencomo. I have a question. So there's going to be, so I'm clear, Some 10-foot sections, 11-foot sections, and 12-foot sections, correct?
There is a consistent 12-foot section through the corridor and a short section of 10 feet. Other areas will be transitioning 10 to 12 throughout the corridor, depending on what is in place.
Okay, I guess I didn't hear correctly. So there are no 11-foot sections right now planned?
There are no 11-foot sections applied in the design.
Okay. So how much of that whole stretch, it's like a mile and a half or something like that, I don't remember the details, is 12-foot compared to the 10-foot sections? Percentage-wise, best guess. I know it's not perfect.
Mr. Chair, I would say probably 70% 12-foot section, 20% 10-foot, and then the rest is transitioning in and out depending on
In and out.
roadway connections, driveways, existing fences, things like that that we have to accommodate for in the project. Zia Middle School is also installing a new driveway around the campus that will facilitate as a new connection point.
Okay. I was just curious how much, to make that change, how much that percentage would be. So it's not the whole project, it's about 70 to 80%, best guess. Okay. Yeah, and I agree with what they've been saying. I think transit operators, they're used to operating in narrower lanes like that in the downtown areas and things like that with traffic all around. This one is less traveled. I don't know that is necessarily going to be an issue for them. I'm not a transit operator, obviously, but they are very skilled. I just think staying with a consistent 11-foot is so much safer. Give that to the bike lanes. It keeps that from changing in and out, in and out, in and out, because you get a 12-foot and people pick up their speed, they get into the sections where it's more narrow and they're not going to slow down. They're going to just continue right through. And so that, to me, is even more dangerous because it does change like that. And it does have those inconsistencies throughout, whether it's a bus pullout or the more narrow sections. To me, that just makes it even more unsafe because of the bigger inconsistencies. So I would encourage them to look at what we've been talking about. So thank you very much for your presentation also.
Anyone else? Okay. We have a member of the public.
Andrea Olgain. So I guess I should say the town of Mesilla because I live on Capri Arc, which is like, so right directly across from Zia Middle School is McDowell Road, and there's that sort of like four-way there, and then you turn down Capri Arc. So I do have a child who attends Zia Middle School, and the traffic there at that time of day is just terrifying. The idea of her walking home from school and what she has to encounter. There are a lot of police officers there. Some days she has to stay after school late, and she calls me and she says, "I'm running a little late, Mom." And I always say, "Are they still there? Are the police officers still there? Is there still staff outside?" And so she's 13, so she's perfectly able to cross a street by herself. But the fact that the traffic is so intense in that area with people dropping their kids off and picking them up is really, it's scary as a parent every day to think, like, is she going to make it home safe? In addition to that, I have a daughter who has disability and she has an adaptive cycle. So it would be really wonderful if we could use a bike path and feel like we had a separation between ourselves and the traffic. So I also, in addition to that, just the speed limit would be lower there. Going from, my husband also drives to NMSU every day using that same road. So the speed limit at 35 is kind of intense. Lately, it's been at 30 because there's some construction going on, and that's been nice because it's kind of slowed things down. But I would love to know that we could use that bike path to get all the way into town on her adaptive cycle, which is a bit wider, and know that there were 11-foot lanes there. I mean, 11-foot vehicle lanes. I would also advocate for that in that area.
Okay, thank you. And I think, just to echo the speed limit, I think we had some suggestions as a committee to look at the speed limit and try to reduce it to 30, but I guess that's been heard and
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. That's something we can, like I said, to look at on the striping, see where we're at on the project and see if there's any kind of modifications. Again, it's a consistent with the transitions in and out of the roadway that could change other stuff. So again, it could implicate other things, but this is certainly I can bring to the team and revisit this at the next meeting if you like.
could be great. Okay, thank you. We're on to committee and staff updates. City of Las Cruces, do you have an update for us?
I don't have, Jeremy Barella, I don't have any updates for us.
Doña County is not here today, right? Town of Mesilla. Does the mayor have any updates for us that he'd care to share? Looks like we'll go on to NMSU
Sulina Costa, no updates.
and NMDOT. He's going to tell us about the Main Street project.
Mr. Chair, I think we covered university. We've got Main Street still ongoing. We haven't started paving. They're still finishing up the drainage crossing for the channel. We're hoping they can advance pretty quickly in the paving, the contractor, the next couple of months. That's all I had.
MPO staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Andrew Ray for the record. As has been alluded to via the references to the governing board, the JPA has been approved by the state of New Mexico. So the formal process of our separation from the city of Las Cruces is basically complete. At this point, one of the more notable vocabulary changes is the change of the name from the policy board to the governing board. I am sure I am going to get that wrong now more often than I will get it right. I've been here for 16 years, so policy, well, it was originally policy committee, so I guess this is the second transition I've gone through. But having that word policy there is very, very firmly ingrained in my brain. So I'm going to preliminarily ask for forgiveness when I consistently get that wrong over this next little while, but it is the governing board. Functionally, and I know I promised that I would give a presentation to this committee about sort of the ins and outs of this transition. I will intend to do that at the next meeting in April. If I'd known that the agenda tonight was going to end up being so light, I would have done so this evening, but I was expecting more applications, frankly, Mr. Chair, so I wanted to reserve the time. But just in brief, functionally from where it's going to look from the standpoint of the BPAC, nothing substantive really is going to change. We're physically located in a different place, which has been referenced, so if you want to come visit us, you'll be going someplace else other than City Hall. The name of the board has changed, but other than that, the relationship between the BPAC and the, I almost said policy board, governing board remains the same as it ever has. There will be some bylaws updates that I anticipate. I want to say anticipate, not promise, that I anticipate that we will be working on this year. Some of those changes may impact the BPAC in particular in some specific ways, but as far as the overall tone of the relationship, it's not going to change between the BPAC and the board. Depending on what comes out of the bylaws process, we will definitely be consulting with the BPAC on any changes that might impact the BPAC. But I know that sounds a bit ominous, but I'm not anticipating anything groundbreaking or earth-shattering. But that's everything that I believe I have for this evening. I do want to mention we do have the TPF coming. Mr. Loya mentioned that. At the April meeting, that will be brought before this committee as an action item. And unlike tonight, that one will have to be ranked. And as you alluded to, Mr. Chair, sometimes you are comparing apples to oranges to onions. That may just be part of what it is that has to be done at that meeting. So everyone forewarned is forearmed. Just be prepared.
Okay. So on the bylaws, at one point we had thrown out the idea of perhaps changing the name of this committee to active transportation advisory committee or something like of that nature.
We can certainly put that on the list for consideration, Mr. Chair, so we will do that.
Okay. And the MTP process.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you. We are moving along with that. We are in the final stages of the second round of stakeholder engagement. We will be going out to the public for what will be the final round of public engagement starting in April. So it will be coming up very, very soon. Unfortunately, since the BPAC does not meet in March, I'm not going to be able to give this committee those dates in advance. Some of those meetings probably will have taken place by the time that this committee meets next in April. But we will disseminate that information about those specific meetings via the email mailing list, as we always do.
Yeah, as I was looking through, I saw the maps in the back, which reminded me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had myself forgotten, obviously.
Okay. Any committee comments? And
Mr. Chair, Jim Wilcox for the record. I just wanted to announce that up in this wrong state, up in Santa Fe, they are currently, we have a Senate Bill 73, which is going through the process. This particular bill will allow cyclists to judge the safety of proceeding through an intersection based on certain requirements. There can't be any threat to their safety, traffic, and things like that. It's also known as the Idaho Stop. This has been adopted by something like 7 states in the United States. It's been shown that it reduces the accidents and injuries, accidents or injuries by approximately 23%. I think that's what it was. And the reason for that is interesting because intersections are a high threat zone. And the longer you hang out at an intersection, the longer you're in that zone of threat. So by looking for any concerns as far as other motorists and then proceeding is shown to be more safe than to be waiting there for at a stop sign or waiting there at a light. You do still have to stop at the light. And also some cyclists can't trigger, if there's a light trigger, they can't trigger the light with their bicycles, so they have to pull off to the side and trigger the pedestrian side. So that is in Senator Hamlin's committee first. It went through that with a unanimous recommendation for approval. It's got another committee to go through and then it'll be voted on. So for the record, that's SB 73, Santa Fe BPAC and Albuquerque BPAC have discussed it and made a recommendation to their body that they report to recommending support for this particular SB 73. And of course, that's up to this group to decide if they wanted to support it. But at this point, I don't see that as really happening as far as a statement from the group. But I wanted to make it aware that that's up there in Santa Fe. And if you're interested, you can look it up and decide your position on it and whether you want to express your position to the various legislators. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll hear, public comment? Second opportunity for public comment? Seeing none, hear a motion to adjourn.
Jim Wilcox, a motion to adjourn.
Ashley Curry, second.
Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.